Right now, sitting in a test facility in Derby, England, is an engine that could soon make everything flying today look like a relic. Not a concept or a render, but an actual, tested machine that's already been pushed to full power and then some. And the numbers it achieved? Well, let's just say it left engineers searching for new vocabulary. Rolls-Royce has been building what they call the UltraFan, and if you think that's just a flashy name for another incremental upgrade, well, what they've pulled off here is genuinely unlike anything the jet engine world has seen in decades. A 25% leap in fuel efficiency. A fan bigger than anything ever bolted onto a jet engine. A gearbox that set a world record. And now, also, a scaled down version aimed directly at the most competitive aircraft market on the planet. This is the story of how one British company is trying to rewrite the rules of flight, clean up aviation's carbon problem, and muscle its way back into a market it walked away from over a decade ago. Let's get stuck in. The larger UltraFan has a fan diameter of 140 inches, which is 3.5 meters across. GE's GE9X, which currently holds the title of largest turbofan in the sky, that's the engine powering the Boeing 777X, is 134 inches. The UltraFan is even bigger. But size alone isn't the point. It's what that size makes possible. Aviation engineers obsess over something called the bypass ratio. It's a measure of how much air flows around the hot engine core versus through it. More air around the core means more thrust from cool air, less from burning fuel, which directly means better fuel efficiency and a quieter cabin. The UltraFan pushes that ratio above 15:1. For context, the latest current generation engine sits somewhere between 10 and 12:1. Here's where Rolls-Royce did something clever. To run a massive fan efficiently, you hit a fundamental problem. The fan needs to spin slowly, but the turbines driving it want to spin fast. Traditional engines compromise, picking a speed that's acceptable for both, but ideal for neither. Like asking one person to simultaneously sprint and jog. Nobody wins. Rolls-Royce fixed this problem with a power gearbox. A mechanical interface that lets the fan and turbines each run at their own optimal speeds, completely independently. The fan spins slowly and smoothly, while the turbines spin fast and hard. In testing, that gearbox was able to transfer 64 megawatts of power, which is a world record for a jet engine gearbox. For context, 64 megawatts is enough to power around 50,000 average homes, from a mechanical unit spinning inside a jet engine. The materials match the ambition. Carbon composite fan blades with titanium leading edges. Ceramic matrix composites inside the core that can survive temperatures conventional metal alloys simply cannot. Key components produced via 3D printing, enabling internal geometries that would be essentially impossible to manufacture any other way. In November 2023, Rolls-Royce ran the demonstrator to full power, and then passed it. Over 70 hours of runtime, every major test point cleared. The CEO described it carefully as putting them in a strong position to support the plans of our customers. Translation: it works, and it works very well. 25% better fuel burn than the first generation Trent engines. And the Trents were not slouches. They powered the A330, early 777s, and the A380. A 25% improvement on top of those is not refinement, it's a different class of machine entirely. For airlines, fuel tends to sit at around 20 to 30% of total operating costs, and that's increasing thanks to certain recent global events. A 25% fuel saving per aircraft, multiplied across a fleet, then multiplied across thousands of flights a year, lands somewhere in the billions of dollars saved across the industry annually. Then there's the emissions side, which in 2026 is no longer just a passing conversation. Aviation accounts for roughly 2 to 3% of global CO2 emissions, and the sector keeps on growing. Governments are understandably tightening the rules. The EU has mandated minimum sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, blending percentages. Carbon taxing is expanding. The pressure is already here. Rolls-Royce's own engineering team estimates that efficient gas turbines like the UltraFan, running on 100% SAF, could account for 80% of the total solution needed for net zero flying by 2050. 80% from one technology pathway is a pretty incredible claim. The UltraFan was also designed from the very start to run on 100% SAF, rather than being some future option to be bolted on down the line. It's part of the architecture. As SAF mandates tighten globally, that decision looks smarter every year. The GE9X is the current giant, the benchmark in large civil jet engines. 110,000 pounds of thrust at takeoff, a world record of 134,000 pounds during testing. Modern materials throughout, designed to haul the enormous 777X across oceans without complaint. The UltraFan 80, Rolls-Royce's wide-body demonstrator, produces around 100,000 pounds of thrust. On raw numbers, the GE9X wins that comparison. But these two engines are not quite chasing the same goal. The GE9X is built for maximum power on ultra-long-haul routes. The UltraFan is built for a world where fuel costs money, emissions carry regulatory penalties, and sustainability is no longer a marketing choice. Think of it like comparing a V8 muscle car to a hybrid sports car. One might win the drag strip, while the other is still making economic sense in 15 years. And here's the thing Rolls-Royce has just made clear to the entire industry. They're no longer just playing in the wide-body space. In February 2026, Rolls-Royce walked into a room of analysts and unveiled a full-scale mock-up of something new. Called the UltraFan 30, it is a narrow-body variant of the same UltraFan architecture, targeting 30,000 pounds of thrust with a 90-inch fan diameter and a bypass ratio up to 15:1. Up to 20% better fuel burn than current in-service narrow-body engines, and the same power gearbox technology. Here's why this matters. Rolls-Royce left the narrow-body market in 2012, selling its stake in the IAE consortium. It walked away from the A320 family just before the A320neo generation locked in the two engine choices you see on nearly every short-haul flight today. The narrow-body segment is the highest volume part of commercial aviation. Airbus alone builds around 50 A320 family aircraft per month. Now Rolls-Royce wants back in. The timing is deliberate. Both Airbus and Boeing are early in scoping out the next generation of single-aisle aircraft, as I've discussed in recent videos, expected in service by the late 2030s. The engine decision for that aircraft is probably 5 to 7 years away, which means right now is exactly when you need to be in the room with the hardware. Rolls-Royce has already secured EU clean aviation funding through the Unified programme, part of a €945 million second phase package to bring the UltraFan 30 demonstrator to full ground test by the end of the decade. The consortium is understood to also include Airbus. They're also seeking up to £200 million in UK government support, part of a total programme cost estimated at £3 billion. The pitch? 40,000 UK jobs, £120 billion in lifetime economic value, and access to a $1.6 trillion global narrow-body market. The UltraFan was never designed to be just a gas turbine. The architecture has future propulsion compatibility built into it right from the beginning. Hybrid electric systems, hydrogen combustion, power management setups that don't fully exist yet, but will by the time these engines are in widespread service. On hydrogen, Rolls-Royce is already testing. A hydrogen combustion demonstrator based on a Pearl 15 business aviation engine is running at their full-scale outdoor test facility. Phase 2 of that program, which started in 2025, has covered cold weather performance, relight capability, altitude ground starting, combustor stability, and transient smoke behaviour. Over 25 flight tests and 14 ground tests done. On the hybrid electric side, Rolls-Royce has been developing a turbo generator system, a compact gas turbine that produces between 500 kilowatts and 1.2 megawatts of electrical power for hybrid aircraft. Compatible with SAF today, and designed to transition towards hydrogen as supply infrastructure develops. What this adds up to is a company not just building one engine, but an entire propulsion architecture. A more traditional turbine for today, but with clear upgrade paths towards cleaner propulsion as the world catches up, already baked in from the start. The UltraFan 30 demonstrator won't complete ground testing until probably 2028. If Airbus or Boeing then select it for their next generation narrowbody, the realistic development window from selection to service entry is around 5 to 7 years. That puts the first passengers on an UltraFan 30 powered aircraft somewhere around 2035 to 2037. The UltraFan 80, despite its strong test results, still doesn't have a launched aircraft program to power. Rolls-Royce is in what it calls working closely with potential customers mode. In plain English, that means the engine exists, it performs, but they're still waiting for someone to commit to building a plane around it. And the competition's moving too. As I've mentioned multiple times on the channel, CFM International, the GE Aerospace and Safran joint venture, is developing RISE, their own next-generation open fan architecture. Pratt & Whitney, working through its current geared turbofan durability issues, is now developing the next iteration of GTF technology. The 2030s narrow-body engine market will be an expensive and technically unforgiving fight. But the UltraFan has done something most next-generation programs have not at this stage. It's actually run, at full power, on a real test stand. Most comparable programs are still in simulation and rig test phases. Rolls-Royce has a physical engine with real run hours behind it. Aviation is currently being asked to reinvent itself while remaining the thing that made it indispensable. A system that moves millions of people across continents ultra reliably every single day. The UltraFan is Rolls-Royce's answer. Less fuel, less noise, fewer emissions, built for sustainable fuels right from the start with a clear path to hydrogen. Designed to scale from the largest wide bodies crossing oceans down to the smallest narrow bodies turning around in 90 minutes. Whether it powers the next Airbus, Boeing or Embraer, whether the hydrogen testing leads to hydrogen-powered commercial engines, whether the narrow-body program wins the selection it's chasing, all of that is still unfolding. But the engine is real, it has run, it has broken records, and Rolls-Royce is clearly only just getting started. Rather than whether the UltraFan changes aviation, the real question is by how much. Thank you so much for watching this video, I really am grateful for it. If you've enjoyed it, then please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our future ones coming out really soon.